Saw dudes, after releasing my Sevagoth Prime video, I set out to test him at level cap. Sevagoth's recent popularity blow-up can be attributed to his Prime release and easy nuke setups, and while it's great for most content, I found it to be really strange to pull off an endurance Cascade content. He's definitely a great frame all around, but he's not my first choice when it comes to Void Cascade farming. Let's get started. The Sevagoth Prime build is fairly standard and is highlighted in the dedicated video I made for him. This build uses Roar over Exalted Shadow, meaning that Shadow only comes out for the self-revival passive and not during normal combat. This build does rely on shield gating to stay alive, hence the use of catalyzing shields and brief respite. The build also has Shadow Haze and Dark Propagation to set off a nuke chain reaction. Equilibrium and Prime Flow keep the game loop smooth. The rest of the mods increase ability strength or duration. The arcanes I chose to use were Arcane Energize and Molt Augmented. Energize keeps energy problems at a minimum, and Molt Augmented increases Roar's damage increase and allows for one-shotting with the Sow and Reap combo. The Archon Shards are straightforward. I use 4 Tauforge Crimson Shards attuned for ability strength and 1 Tauforge Amber Shard for casting speed. Ability strength is key for one-shotting and allows us to offload mods for better survivability. As for Shadow, the build is purely meant for survivability. All the mods are meant to keep the Shadow alive as long as possible in the self-revival state. Steel Charge is only used for the extra mod capacity. Prime Sure-Footed ensures we don't have knockdowns getting us killed. Cunning Drift increases the range of consume. Fortitude, Vigilante Vigor, and Fast Deflection decrease shield downtime. Rapid Resilience reduces status effect duration on Shadow, and Adaptation allows us to tank a few more hits. Catalyzing Shields increase our shield gate time, and Rolling Guard grants us absolute invulnerability when we need it most. Arcane Aegis and Barrier assist in shield gating, which can keep Shadow alive for much longer and increase this chance of self-revival. Tenet Glaxion was my primary weapon of choice, only for the Photon Overcharge mod, which increases the rate of energy orb drops on enemies afflicted with cold status effects. This weapon was seldom used in the run because it did not do too much damage to armored enemies. Regardless, it made the energy economy balance much easier to manage. I rolled my Tenet Glaxion with the magnetic damage bonus. As for my secondary weapon, I used my Kuva Nukor built out for viral and heat. This Kuva Nukor had a magnetic damage bonus. With the crit chance bonus granted to us from Shadow Haze, this weapon can consistently crit and take advantage of its insane 11.7 times critical multiplier. Usually I would mod for heat only, but viral was necessary to ensure one-shots on tougher enemies when Roar was unavailable. As per tradition, I used Praedos since it allows for better map traversal. The evolutions I used were Drifting Grace, Shockwave Synergy, Evolved Ascension, and Universal Readiness. Even though this weapon wasn't used much, I decided to drop Melee Duplicate in favor for Melee Animosity, since a crit chance buff from Shadow Haze would make the former useless. Finally, we have the Panzer build. The most notable parts of the build are Synth Deconstruct, Viral Quills, Tenacious Bond, and Reinforced Bond. Synth Deconstruct creates health orbs which get converted to energy via equilibrium. Viral Quills primes enemies with viral, boosting our damage, and Tenacious Bond increases our final critical multiplier for Kuva Nukor. Reinforced Bond increases our fire rate. This companion serves as the cherry on top for our outgoing damage and ensures better one-shot potential. The focus school is Madurai since you need to one-shot Thrax units, and you will need Void Strike occasionally. Madurai also offers Sevagoth a 40% ability strength buff via Sling Strength, which is great for Roar, Reap, and Sow. The extra casting speed is also a very welcome buff and keeps gameplay smooth. The amp I used was a standard 147 or Certus Brace, Rat Black Prism, and Fad Scaffold. You can easily one-shot Thrax with the headshot and lower levels. I used Magus Cloud, Magus Lockdown, Eternal Eradicate, and Eternal Onslaught as my operator arcanes. Time to talk about the run. Sevagoth Prime did fairly well, but let's talk about some of the sticking points. Shadow AI seems to be a bit dumb. There were a couple of times where I tried to nuke rooms with the Sow and Reap combo, and the Shadow would spin around in circles even when I wasn't aiming down sights. This made my ability casts a waste of energy and let a horde of enemies overwhelm me. This was extremely aggravating and caused another issue, a massive energy drain. Gloom drains energy based on the amount of enemies within the aura radius. With the enemies that survived getting way too close, I experienced many energy problems, hence why I used Tenet Glaxion. At times, I even had to toggle the ability off and use energy pads, which I rarely have to do for other frames. I also found that the Sow and Reap combo was somewhat inconsistent. I brought a viral Kuva Nukor to assist in damage output and hopefully one-shot, but it wasn't enough all the time. Usually you want to activate Sling Strength, apply Viral, and have Roar active to kill enemies outright. I did this most of the time, but sometimes energy was tight so it wasn't a guarantee. At level cap, the biggest issue is dispatching enemies quickly and efficiently, which is something I thought Sevagoth could do with ease. I was getting a bit frustrated with how ability spam was doing very little. Now, let's get to the positives. The self-revive passive that Sevagoth has is great. I was dying quite a bit, and that's mostly due to the aforementioned energy issues. While that was a bit annoying, it was nice to have a safety net that was not my goofy operator. The Shadow build featured in the video definitely helped a lot. Next, the crit chance buff provided by Shadow Haze was a game changer for Kuva Nukor, and the same can be said for many other weapons that you might like to try. At base, it grants a 107% crit chance buff with the build shown. Keep in mind that this buff is a flat buff like Arcane Avenger, meaning you will crit 100% of the time at the very least. With weapons that have AoE, like Lave Prime or others, this buff is indispensable. Overall, I still really enjoy Sevagoth, but I think I overhyped his abilities by just a bit. I may revisit him in a future video with weapons that are better optimized to his playstyle and see if I can squeeze a bit more performance out of him. I hope this video helped. Let me know what you think in the comments. As always, thank you for watching and happy farming. Stay safe.
Working on backups. Just lost an Exilizer to possession. Get it back.